All right, welcome back to another episode of Nostalgia Street, where we share the stories that shape us. I'm rejoined after a hiatus with my buddy and pal, Vince.
Yeah, I went through a 3-month fever dream.
Fever dream.
And we're back to be on the show, so glad to be back.
So our special guest today is Heather. We'll learn much more about Heather as we always do about our guests. So at this point, this is where I turn over to Vince for the question of the day.
So forewarning, normally we have our questionnaire that I can concoct a question from. So with our guest today choosing to make the job a little bit more hard without a questionnaire,
naturally,
we're just going to materialize a question out of thin air. And Heather, you will just hopefully can roll with it.
Okay, I can. I hope so.
So thinking back to your childhood, pick a cartoon that you particularly enjoyed, and let's recast that cartoon with live action actors today.
Ooh.
What would that be, and who's playing who?
Looney Tunes.
Live action Looney Tunes.
Can you do it? I'll be Roadrunner.
So what live action person would play the Roadrunner today?
Oh, live action person.
Yeah, there's no CGI. This is like they're getting costumes.
Oh, well, can't you be that person?
You could.
You could.
You can't run that fast.
You can cast
though.
whoever you want.
Yeah, I want you to be the Roadrunner.
Okay, who's Elmer Fudd?
Jeff.
No.
That's too easy.
The tables have been
Absolutely.
turned on us.
Yes,
Who's Bugs Bunny?
I'll be Bugs Bunny.
Okay.
Who's Daffy
Porky
Duck?
Pig?
Ooh. Well, let's go ahead and let Amos be
Porky
my
Pig.
husband.
Because he's so fat,
He's
right?
so
He's so chubby.
girthy.
Yeah,
No,
girthy.
Not fat. He's voluptuous.
Was Daffy Duck a Looney Tune?
Yes.
Yeah.
Daffy Duck was.
Who's our Daffy Duck?
Ooh, Paulton Haken.
Paulton Haken, Daffy Duck.
Bear Paul is Daffy Duck.
Airball.
Now he has to come on the show.
That's your call out to me on the show, Paul.
Yep.
Yeah, we should. Nostalgia Street invites you on a retro ride that's more than just a trip down memory lane,
Uncover life lessons and personal growth stories that stem from our collective past.
so you can live a richer, more connected life today.
Whether you're a 90s kid, an 80s teen, or simply young at heart, you'll find something to relate to in each episode.
Now, here are your hosts, Vince and Jeff. All right, well, our guest today is Heather Kittleson. Heather's founder of Fortitude, and we will find out all that is all about in the latter part of our segment. So now it's time to roll up our sleeves and learn more about Heather. So, Heather, where did you grow up?
Missouri.
Wait, did I know this?
I don't know.
What?
Are we going back from birth to 10, you said?
What part of Missouri?
So right outside the Ozarks. I was born in Mansfield, Missouri, but I lived in Ava until I was in
Wow.
3rd grade.
All right.
Ava, Missouri. Yep.
Show me state.
Y'all, I'm saying hillbilly.
Oh, the
Hillbilly.
Ozarks.
Are
Yep.
we having a Missouri off now?
Well, yeah, because I grew up in Columbia, Missouri.
I think we did discuss this, but it was a
did.
long
It's a
time
long
ago.
time
Because
ago.
I don't think I remember that either.
Yeah.
But I do. It's coming back to me now that I.
Yeah, so the Ozarks are the hilly part of Missouri.
Yep.
The Hamptons of Missouri, as they would say.
Nah, I wouldn't go that far, but
The
there's a
Hamptons.
lot of money, though. I mean, around the Lake of the Ozarks, there's a lot of money
Lots.
around there, right?
Yep. And I tried to watch the Ozarks, that series, and I
Yeah.
got about 2 episodes in, and I was like, ooh, I think it was bringing back some childhood trauma. I just was like, this is too real.
It's pretty dark.
It was, yeah. I mean, I at 10 wasn't getting involved in that stuff, but it was pretty dark.
So Have
what-
you ever heard of Lake of the Ozarks, Vince?
I've heard of Ozarks, like the water bottle company and the show.
Okay, but different.
Have
Lake
you
of-
ever, haven't experienced it, like
Like,
physically in the Ozarks?
I guess, we haven't planned our company retreat for the year yet, so
Not yet.
that's still on the table.
So,
It-
no, Lake of the Ozarks is a massive lake, and this is a true story. If you look at a map, maybe we can have our editor Ethan overlay this. An aerial version of the Lake of the Ozarks looks like a big dragon, and
Ooh.
when you trace the what they call it, the perimeter of all the coves and everything like that, that line is longer than the coast of California.
Wow.
True story. But I also lied about one other thing. I said something to my wife about, I heard that the colon or the small intestines is like longer than 2,000 miles, and it's actually 22 feet.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, your
but
veins. If you were to
Yeah.
lay out your veins,
your
I
veins
think
are
in your body.
60,000 miles
Yeah,
long.
that's
what she told me. I believe her more than I believe
Well, thank you for
myself.
subscribing to Body Facts, viewers.
Body Facts Geography.
So what's iconic of a Missouri childhood then, from both of you?
My accent, and we lived on a farm, and so I grew up riding four-wheeler out into our pasture. I mean, there's so many fun memories about if we got a dusting of snow, school got canceled. It was just a dusting because it's pretty neutral in weather there. But I grew up with 3 older brothers, and so on the farm with cows and pigs, and we built forts way out in our pasture in this big, because tons of trees. So I would say what's really iconic about Missouri is like it's not just groves and then field and grove and field. It is trees everywhere.
True.
And when we moved here, or we'd come on vacation, and every single time we got up towards Minnesota, I was like, there's no curves. There's literally not a single curvy road. It's just mile markers by square roads. And in Missouri, we're talking like whipping up and down hills and going, and you're like super close to these trees, and you're in canopies of trees everywhere you went. So I just remember always growing up loving nature for that reason, because we played in it every day.
And those are facts. Now in Columbia, where I'm from, there were a lot more straight areas, but any given street would do exactly what you're talking about. It could curve and go down at the same time. It was like a roller coaster.
So fun.
They were a lot of fun.
So we'd make fun of our parents all the time. Corn, beans, corn, as we would pass every pasture.
Yeah.
Well, it was it's fields here, but it was a pasture in Missouri. But I had a terrible accent. When we moved up here, my brother Paul had a mullet, and he got teased because he looked like a girl and had these super awesome curls. And then we had a twang that it was undeniable. Like I would say, Janny and Tan, everything. People would always say, they would make me say, yeah, I'll come back now here. It was really bad. So we got made fun of a lot when we moved from Missouri to Minnesota.
So what was the accident?
Accident.
Did you say you had an accident?
Accent.
Oh, accent.
Yeah, sorry, accent.
I thought you said accident.
We'll unpack that later.
Somehow the accident or the accent gave you an accident.
I was really mad when Mom and Dad, we were in 3rd grade. I was in 3rd grade when we moved. We went to a country school. And so there was like 1st and 2nd grade in a classroom, 3rd and 4th in a classroom, very small. And when we moved to Minnesota, 8th grade, from 3rd to 8th, so 5 years, my parents brought us back to Missouri to visit. And I thanked my parents over and over and over, because I was mad when we moved, but when we went back to visit, I was thanking them for making us move, because we pulled up to an old neighbor, and he was sitting up on his wood fence with bib overalls on, no shirt on underneath, and he had like maybe 4 teeth, and then he had the straw of hay. He was chewing on it. Yeah. And he's like, y'all come back around here, visit some, just this slow, very it was just like, thank you for moving us to an area where we are educated and we can have more than 4 teeth.
These are fighting words, Heather.
These are fighting words. But we were in a very desolate, where we were going to a country school and very desolate, and people are kind and loving and awesome. So I'm not trying to downplay, but it was more of just, we really didn't realize how desolate and kind of hillbilly we were living, because we didn't know any different, you know? So once we knew different.
And you're close to Arkansas. I mean, that whole area, though, is kind of that quote-unquote hillbilly-ish. That's where the term came from. Yeah. Hilly. We know the hilly came from. Not sure where the Billy came from.
Who's Billy?
Billy's the guy that went up and down the hilly.
I did love the simplicity. That was the other piece. I always say people who get considered hillbillies, they're just chill. They're really just laid back and calm, and
as we call them, chilly billies.
Okay, hillbilly, chilly billy.
So, what did your parents do when you were growing up?
My mom kind of always did her own thing. So she got involved in different things like home interiors, decorating, kind of that consultant type stuff, where she would do home interior shows in people's houses. And then she stayed home with us for a while. And my dad was, he actually was a probation officer is what he graduated with. But that was he has too much empathy. So it was really hard for him to disconnect that. Yeah. So in Missouri, he was a farmer. So we milked. So I spent a lot of time in the milking barn with my dad. My dad was who I always wanted to be around. He was my everything. And so I would sit out in the milk barn with the cows on a blanket And just 3 times a day, I would sit out there with them with our wood burning stove. And
Oh, that's cute.
yeah.
Were they always hand uttered, as you call it, or robotic?
They were hand.
Okay.
I don't know that it ever changed to
Hand
robotic.
milked?
I think there was some, it wasn't as at all like it is today, obviously, because I'm 44 years old. But when I think back, it might have just been some sort of plastic that sucked up on there.
Sucked
on the
up on
udder.
there. That's a hillbilly. Hey, it's sucked up on there.
Those nipples. Cow nipples.
I've got nipples, Greg.
Milk extraction.
Remember that?
No.
Remember that Meet the Fockers?
Oh, yes.
Oh,
I've got nipples, Greg.
Yes,
You want to milk me? When we digress.
We're going to play that game.
And back to the milk barn. I do remember my dad taking and shooting the milk right into my mouth multiple times. And there's a reason I think today that I do not like milk. I don't enjoy drinking milk. I never have. And it just reminds me of that raw
warm milk.
Yeah. So trauma just brings me back to.
I've never had raw
That's like
milk.
hazing.
I've had whole milk, but never raw milk.
And then the smell of it, because we had the big old milk container, that it would fill it all up, and then the froth on the top.
Yeah.
My brothers would grab that froth and all over. I mean, just.
Well, speaking of that, how were the sibling dynamics?
Oh,
Sibling
fabulous.
dynamics.
Yeah.
Yeah? Little competition, little teasing, little...
I have a brother who's 12 years older than I am. And then there's a gap. And then there's 8 years, or I think Paul's 5. The 3 of us were born pretty back to back. My brothers were awesome. I was so grateful to grow up with 3 older brothers. Now having some really awesome sisterhood in my life with friends.
Yeah.
And I see how sisters interact and their dynamic of just how close they are. I really now wished I would have had a sister.
Yeah.
But my brothers are still awesome and we all still get along. But one brother was always tormenting me. He knows this. Drop kick me with Charlie horses in my arms and my thighs as I would walk by. And then the other brother I always admired and loved. Still admire and love them all. But the oldest brother, since he was 12 years older than I was, it's like I entered into first grade and he was graduating. So we didn't have much of a relationship growing up.
Yeah.
He was just my big brother that would come and go and be out causing trouble in the hillbilly world. So I'm grateful. I'm so grateful for the brothers that I got.
Do you have any scars? Because they always say scars tell great stories. Do you have any kind of a scar that has a story to it?
James and I, the one who's closest to me, we were out walking by our pond and he had a shovel over his shoulder and he didn't realize how close I was and I was too close to be. But I have a scar right here on my eye that it's pretty faint now, but he turned and it just whacked me in the head, knocked me over and blood's pouring. And there was so many times I bled or got hurt.
Sounds like a farm standard.
Yeah.
And it always felt like it was never intentional. I'm sure there were a few that were plotted and planned.
They were good at making it look like an accident.
Yeah.
You had a drop kicker there, so.
Yep.
And now he's in the NFL.
Batteries thrown at my head. I mean, James just always had it out. He was the middle child, but he's the softest, kindest, loving brother. I mean, he's just got a heart that is so big. So even if he did hurt me, he did feel bad. So that was nice. Like he'd hurt me and then come to my aid.
So being the sole daughter, did you ever take advantage of that and maybe blame your brothers for things that you had done because you were the daughter, you're the innocent one, you didn't do any wrong?
Yeah, I'm sure, Vince. I'm sure I did. Nothing comes to mind right now, but I definitely was the eye for my mom too.
Yeah. My
mom says to me, and she'll still say it, she's like, you were such a chill kid. Like I was never a drama queen. I was always just even keel. I didn't get ruffled about stuff, and I think it's because I just hung out with my brothers and boys for that matter. I just got along with them and played sports, and I love to go out and play football. Like I still go and play catch with my son all the time because I just love to throw the football. But as far as tattling on them when I saw him smoking at the park, probably not a good idea. That was just leading up to getting my butt kicked even harder. So I kind of knew the fine line of what I could cross and what I couldn't, but I did because we had chores every week. I would use it against them, and I would say, if you don't do my dishes for a week, I will tell mom that I saw you kissing that girl behind the barn. Like stuff like that. Yeah. Or I saw that she was in your room and I know she's not supposed to be. So now you have to do this. But my mom picked up on that, right? Because why is James doing, it's not James's week to do the dishes. What did James do? It was this whole, so there were times where we just had this silent look of like, I see you, but I won't tell. I promise.
Strategic even in your youth.
Yeah.
These are the stories we're looking for, Jeff. These are the stories we're looking for.
Building her fortitude.
I learned manipulation way too early. I think that led into a lot of problems in my future.
So how old were you when you moved to Minnesota again?
Third grade. So
Third grade.
10, no,
All right.
like 9, I think. Is that how old you are? Yeah.
Third grade.
8 or 9. I think it was 8.
Some of that range. All right. So how long did it take to kind of make that adjustment where you felt like, all right, well, now we're in school and things are kind of calming down and nobody's making fun of my accent.
And the world is flat.
And the world is flat. That is very true. It was pretty quick.
Good.
Yeah. I mean, I was the curly, redheaded little girl that had a twang and people wanted to be my friend, which was helpful because I was different. I think sometimes when you move in and I had, a very just calm, I wanted to be everybody's friend. And so it was pretty easy for me to adjust. It was not as easy for my brother, Paul. He was already in 8th grade. And that 7th, 8th grade
That's tough.
is a little harder.
Yeah.
But we all kind of held our own and worked our way into sports and stuff.
So when you got like into that junior high school, how big of a school or how many students were in your class?
So I would probably say there was about 60, 65. When I graduated, there was 80, little over 80 in my graduating class. So I went from having probably 12 to 60-ish. So it was very overwhelming. Yeah. And dang it, so we went to the elementary school to see the classroom. So I knew where I was going and what I was doing to make sure I walked in and didn't stand out even more as a redheaded, pigtailed, flower-dressed. I mean, totally stood out. Little did they tell me what I was supposed to wear that day. But I got off the bus on the wrong entrance. Oh. And so instead of getting off on the 3rd grade entrance, I got off on the 1st grade entrance. And so I walked in and I kind of looked around and I was like, oh, I think I got to go down here. And as I walked down the hallway, I walked past the bathroom and all these little boys' heads pop out of the men's bathroom. And they're like, oh, there she is. There she is. And so I just remember how embarrassed I was because it was just like this, instead of a soft, quick little entrance into my classroom, wrong hallway, it blew up. And so I remember I felt very shy and very embarrassed that day. But
sounds like you had the beginnings of a fan club right there.
Yeah.
Or a dating pool, at
I
least.
think it was just, they were new flesh and blood. They were like mosquitoes, like, who's this going to be? Yeah.
We'll be right back.
So, what would a typical weekend look like having fun in that high school time frame? What would you do on the weekends? It's legal.
Up until 16, it was very much just all of us hanging out, groups of us hanging out. We have in Slayton is where I grew up, and Slayton has where you park. So you park like you do
the
on
middle
the
of the street.
They have where you park like this in the middle.
Okay.
So we would pound laps is what we called it. So
Pound laps.
on the one end we have Pizza Ranch. And so you would do a big U-turn in the Pizza Ranch parking lot and then come back down. And so we'd head north and south. And then we would flag each other down and then you'd pull in and then they'd pull in. And so you'd be able to sit in the middle and talk and hang out. Now, after 16, it consisted of leaving town because that's when I started to have more fun and drink and get to know other people at the Worthington College and the Marshall College. And so we were always venturing, I feel like, out, getting to know other people from outside the Slayton area, especially being athletic.
Yeah.
Didn't want to get caught. I don't really know how I never got caught. And I don't do anything. I'm sober now, people, but back in the day, I think about that. All the parties that got busted, all the places I was at, and it was like, man,
Well, it's the chill Heather, remember?
Yeah.
Heather's so chill. She wouldn't do that.
I am.
Yeah.
Yes. I, again, manipulated the system.
Strategy.
Yeah. We had a lot of fun. I loved growing up in a small town. I really did. We had great teachers. We had awesome. What's really cool now, if we can talk about nostalgic, is living where we do. We now play against all of the towns and the teams that I played against.
Yeah.
I never would have thought I would be living in a small town back in southwestern Minnesota with my family and my kids. So now my son plays against Murray County Central, which is Slayton, in basketball and in track. So I go to the Slayton track where I did high hurdles and 300 hurdles, and my son is doing hurdles.
Wow.
And I'm watching him race or play basketball against people from my high school's kids or who I graduated with. So
Right.
it's like this whole new generation of kids that are playing against each other, and we're parents in the
Yeah.
stands, like, hey. So it melts my heart that this is now the life that I'm living.
Don't things look even smaller as you get older?
Very.
When you look
Very,
back, everything
yes.
looks so big when we were growing up, and now you go back and it's like, wow, that little loop you probably did wouldn't take any time at all, or it just looks so small, and you're like, how did we find enjoyment in that? But we did.
And the music blaring, every single car that passed had a different playlist going, and like the basses
Big
in every single
woofers.
car.
Yep.
Like every single one of us is dealing with hearing loss now in our mid 40s.
Tinnitus.
That's where it starts.
Because, yep.
So what were some of the songs on your playlist growing up?
Well, I won a talent show doing a dance to Vanilla Ice. Ice, baby.
Yep.
Dun, 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 dun. Yep. And MC Hammer, Paula Abdul. I mean,
Classics.
The 90s.
oh man, just a lot of the 90s. And then some of the TV shows were, Grease, Footloose, Dirty Dancing was my favorite.
Yep.
Because I had that naughty streak in my I'm like, I want to dance, and I like the way they dance, but
I want
it's
someone to throw me
different.
up in the air.
I want someone to exactly.
Patrick,
We're
baby
in
in
the,
the corner.
water.
Where are you,
Yeah.
Patrick?
He's dead.
Yeah, my parents didn't let us watch. I mean, we were raised in a Christian home, so they didn't let us watch a lot of horror films or any of that. We did it sleepovers and different
Sure.
things. Freddy Krueger and the Rising of the Living Dead, or what was it called?
Yep.
Just some of the or the
Jason.
cats. What's the cat? Jason.
Yeah, the cat.
Pet Cemetery.
Yes.
Oh,
Yes.
I mean, I think I still have nightmares of that. But the things that we were able to watch was like Laura Ingalls Wilder, Little House on the Prairie.
Yeah.
Our kids are watching that too right now, that's bringing me back. But we were very just football, good shows, good music. I loved the Beach Boys. There was a lot of, I have an old soul, so I listen to a lot of I'm terrible with names of artists and songs, but I
Yeah.
can just tell you that I go back to like all the kind of hillbilly, like I want to say hillbilly, like just the soft country, raspy voice, just more chill. Not a heavy metal gal at all. That stuff makes it makes my skin crawl as soon as it comes on. Amos loves it.
Wow.
My husband loves heavy metal, and
That's a surprise fact.
yeah,
Surprise
he does. Yeah, but I do not like that.
So what happened after high school? Take us there.
Ooh. I went to Marshall College for just 1 year, and then I transferred over to Mankato State. I graduated. I actually went to Mankato State, and I went into the aviation program.
Oh, wow.
wow.
My dream was to be in the Air Force and be a fighter pilot, and I was injured my junior year of high school in hurdles. And so with junior, senior, but I wasn't able to go into the Air Force due to a stress fracture in my spine. So I got a cracked vertebrae through that whole injury. So it kind of threw my dream off.
Yeah.
So then I was like, well, I want to maybe do volleyball. Well, I broke my foot a week into college. I mean, just things I just felt like were just one after another. So I just drank a lot of Keystone and I gained 25 pounds. Like, everyone does freshman year.
Yeah.
No, not everyone. Let's not generalize. But I loved freshman year. I loved going to Mankato State. I had a great time in college. A lot of awesome people. I graduated with my elementary ed degree. I kind of felt a little lost and like, what do I want to do? And so that felt like the next best thing because I did love children. What they don't tell you is once you get into school, you also have to love adults, parents, and politics and all the things that come with that.
Yeah.
And I struggled really hard with that. And so after I graduated, I moved to Minneapolis and did executive assistant work for a couple different CEOs for large companies, a telecommunications company, and then also Wells Fargo Trust Ops, downtown Minneapolis. So small town girl, move into the big city. And it felt like I was in a movie because of the position that I had was like, the big glass doors and the IDS building. And I have the round desk in the front and people come in and I was like, man, this is life. This is awesome. This is just like the movies.
Yep.
What they didn't tell me was to not wear heels on your first day of your job because you're going to park about 50 blocks away from downtown Minneapolis to get to your job. And I had blisters on every single one of my toes my first day at work. That was...
Oof.
But I loved being an executive assistant. It was so fun. I got to see the ins and the outs of everything that goes on in business, from being on the board or to being in the board meetings to hearing all the things. It was like the whole fly on the wall, mouse in the corner. Like that was totally me. I got to live the life of a CEO and be technically his hands and feet of just writing his emails and all his responses, and yet flight plans and Excel spreadsheets, like realize very quickly that is not a passion of mine. Like you can take any type of operations and just no thank you.
Did you ever have a peculiar request from any of these CEOs that you worked with that sticks out? Like a specific order or like they had to do like...
All of them. There was 3 and 3. So when I moved here in 2009, I also was an executive assistant, office manager, HR, kind of that combined role because it was a smaller business. And they all, from food requests to specific fabric,
Whoa.
to like just different things of wanting, because every one of them had they wanted to stand out and they wanted to be different. But as they're being different just like the other one, right? Like it just felt like, so even when I planned a board meeting and it was an outing, and I was flying all the board members in from all over the world. There was 3 from other countries, and we were flying them in, and he had to have a specific sweatshirt with a specific fabric, and then the logo had to be on a specific spot. He didn't want it to be where, so it was just like all these, and then it would be different the next month, and it'd be different the next month, or so.
Eccentricities, just like rock bands.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Those crazy riders that stars want.
Yep.
M&Ms with no certain color and then stuff like that.
And
So that happens even at the CEO level.
People allow them to do it. Right?
Yeah.
Yep.
Kind of have to since they're paying the bills.
Right.
Yeah, I was going to ask that. So was there, being a fly on the wall, were there any things that you learned about human nature and how people are as you're listening in on other people's conversations?
I learned discernment very quick, even just from some of my trauma, because things that I had gone through and ways that I had been fooled as a human.
Yep.
There's a lot of narcissistic personality in personalities, not necessarily disorders, more just narcissistic tendencies, I would say.
Yeah.
Power hungry, greed. There was a lot of things. I mean, I almost got subpoenaed from one specific business because there were things that I knew of, and I left.
Yeah.
But it was like after the fact, and I saw it come crumbling down. I was like, writing on the wall for that one. So I feel like now, in all the things I've learned and all the different personality traits, and when I also have a detective kind of a thing about me where I can hear someone say one thing and then I'm around them again and I hear them say something different, or it's not how it was. So I've watched the manipulation.
Yeah.
even through emails, because I had my hands in so many things that I was like, none of this is matching up. Like, none of this is making any sense now. And so I find myself I have more of a critical eye now on character, because I just know how easy it is. I did it.
Yeah.
I did it with my addiction. And for those a lot of people know my story, but when you're trying to hide something, you find yourself in a lot of different lies and betrayal and manipulation yourself. And it's not a fun place to be.
Yeah.
And so even now being out of that and being just, I'm what you see is what you get. I got nothing to hide. My dirty laundry's out there for everybody, you know.
Right,
I don't want to hide anything. I want to be real. And when I see other people not being, it's just easy. It's easier for me to catch on just because I'm so in tune with all of that now.
And the kids are like, "Dang it, mommy's on to me
yes.
again."
Should get her a hat, Detective Heather Holmes.
We'll be right back.
Well, so for people who aren't familiar, maybe give us a quick lowdown on that part of your story.
2019 was when I hit my rock bottom. We had our fourth child. And if we go back, when you talk about childhood and you talk about college and you talk about all these different times in my life, I would say college was about the time that I kind of knew. I knew that I had the genetic of alcoholism, because I had seen it in my family, seen the destruction, witnessed it. And I was like, these people can drink a lot. And they're not just drinking to just have a glass of wine or two. It's like, they're all in until they're no longer there.
Yeah.
And so in college, I realized very quickly that I could drink a lot more than most. And it never stopped. Like I could go, wake up, do it again. So the behavior patterns that I had, I was like, I'm in college though. I can excuse this. And then it just was the way it was. And no one ever really looked at me and said, I think you might have a problem. Like no one ever warned me or gave me signs of things. I just tried to piece it all together for myself. And again, moved to Minneapolis, it's all new. You know, we have a reason for it every single time. But what had happened is Amos and I had we were 4 children in, 3 of our own, 1 from previous, and I developed postpartum depression. And I didn't know necessarily what postpartum depression was. I knew what it was. I had zero empathy because I didn't know, I had never had it.
Right.
I had a lot of sympathy for my friends that were sharing with me, but I was like, man, I've had great pregnancies. I come out of it and bounce back. Like,
sucks to be you.
Sorry. I wished
Yeah.
But with this one, it knocked me completely on into postpartum depression. And I didn't ever even have depression. Like I didn't know what it was like to be really sad, because I just wasn't a sad person. But the alcoholism kicked in. I found myself literally hiding and drinking straight vodka bottles just all day, every day, just not knowing when to stop or how to stop. And towards the end of my decision, when I was going to take my life, I could feel my organs shutting down.
Wow.
That's how bad it was. Like I was puking blood.
Whoa.
I knew my body could not take the abuse and the toxins that I was doing. And for some way, somehow, I was still functioning.
Yeah.
That was the other piece. I was still out in the community. I was still going to things. I was still being a mom and a wife. But what was going on in our house was really hard. And Amos and I are pretty vocal about it, and we share a lot about it because we are huge advocates on educating people on all of this, because it's everywhere.
Yeah.
It's everywhere. So, but December 5th was the day that I was going to head straight to the liquor store, and I was going to buy a few extra bottles, and I had a side of oxycodone, a bottle of it, and was going to overdose that day. And then my incredible husband, being in tune with his spirit, and just, the man is awesome. He got halfway to work. He's an entrepreneur, and he doesn't stay home. He goes to the office because he's an entrepreneur and owns his own business. So he got halfway in, and he felt very convicted to come home that day and work from home. And he didn't he's like, I really don't understand what this is, but I'm going to listen and I'm going to follow it. He knew it was the Holy Spirit, turned his car around, came home, and I would have been out that front door within 10 minutes. I was getting my shoes on and trying to pull myself together to leave, and I wouldn't have come back.
Yeah.
Wow.
So went to treatment. I was in treatment at Woodstock for a full month, and best thing I ever did. And January 17th of 2020 is when I got home, and COVID hit in March. So when COVID hit, I mean, COVID wreaked havoc on everyone. It still is on this world.
Yeah.
But for me, my individual story is that I got to be home and I got to be present and I got to be sober with my family for the very first time in a very long time. And so I would sit and I would just stare at my kids and I would just touch them and hold them, because for the very first time I was like, I wasn't numb. Not just numb from the alcohol, but numb from the depression, and like the whole world just opened up.
Yeah.
And so that's a lot of, there's a lot of depth and a lot of deep crevices that go into that whole story, but it's a story that I love to share because I really believe that there's hope for everyone. And if I was 10 minutes away from not being here on the face of this earth, and God said, I ain't done with you yet.
Yeah.
So buckle up, honey.
So-
We're going for a ride.
Thank you.
I'll just say this without getting too teary-eyed, but I appreciate people like you. Another individual that we've had a shortened podcast on, but we'll probably have more on, is Dr. Melissa Bitburner.
Okay.
Bitburner. Sorry, we call her Dr. Mo. But she's a recovering drug addict. And she won the SME Entrepreneurial Excellence. She won that category this year.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
But we had known her story from some other projects we'd done with her, and so we said, what will you do if you win tonight? And she said, well, right away I will tell them that I'm a 27 years in recovery drug addict, because I want to break apart the stigma attached to mental health and drug addiction and things like that. And I take my hat off, and I remember you and I talked about this at Scooters here in Sioux Falls. I'll never forget it, because it's kind of like my mouth was dropping, but at the same time, I'm in so admiration for people who are so vulnerable and put themselves out there, because like you say, if we think about it, we know of several people in all of our lives that we know these people are dealing with whatever, and sometimes we don't know what to say or we don't know what to do.
Yeah.
But by some of this coming out into the open, it then gives people the power that they need to say, okay, I'm not alone, and if they can make something better happen in their lives, then I can do that too.
Yes.
And then there's less suicides and less other issues that pop along with it.
The isolation and the silence, the pride piece is where we all get stuck, because we don't want people to know. We don't want to share that we have a problem. And if we share that we have a problem, we have to quit.
Yeah.
And this is all I know. And this is where my outlet is. This is my vice. And if I say I have a problem, now I'm on watch. Everyone's going to be watching me. Everyone's going to be, I go into Hy-Vee and I get a case of beer because my neighbor said, hey, while you're in town, would you mind? And I'm like, yeah, absolutely. It's not a problem, because it doesn't bother. I can be around it.
Yeah.
I can be in front. I really believe that God has redeemed my life from that. I still have to work at it. I still have to work actually very hard through building my foundation and the education that I have as to what to look for. I can't put my guard down.
Yeah.
But I know walking into situations that, because I've worked so hard to get where I'm at, I'm okay. And if I'm not, I'm going to share it, because I'm so open and honest with my husband. I'm like, that kind of sucks to see them. We were in Germany.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, people are laughing and hold glasses of wine, and the sun's out.
And the mugs are so big.
Thank goodness yes, they are. And I'm like, thank goodness the coffee rocks over here too, because I can drink the coffee. They don't give refills over there though.
In Germany?
No, they
What?
they give you one, and then if you want another, you have to buy another. So I digress. But when it comes to vulnerability, the very beginning, I was not all through COVID until the doors opened up for the world to kind of go back into the world, I was still very private about it. I didn't want people to know. I didn't want people to know and then go, oh, I knew you had a problem.
Yeah.
And then stories will start to click. I've had leaders in the community go, oh, at this event, I remember.
Yeah.
And it's the stuff that you hope people don't remember because it may have been embarrassing, or it was when you were trying to hold it together, but you just couldn't,
Right.
or a golf tournament, or just stuff that was like, but they would one-off excuse it because, well, she's a lot of fun. She's just
Right.
having fun. And little
Yeah.
did they know that I had a bottle of vodka under my front seat,
Yeah. Yeah.
like just in the pain that one is going through, we don't want to talk about it. We just don't want people to know because we have an image. And the image that we carry is I'm a leader in this community and I'm doing good and I don't want to be a hypocrite because I'm out, like just
Yeah.
and to be honest with you, it's not worth your life. It's not. Like that's the piece where it's like I was going to take my kid's mom away. I was going to leave this earth and leave my kids and my husband without a mom and a wife because I was too prideful
Yeah.
to say, I have a problem.
Yeah.
Like what? That doesn't make any sense to me, but it's where a lot of people are at in
Yep.
this world. So my vulnerability, Jeff and Vince, is just because more people come to me now and say, I need your help because I'm a safe. I have nothing. I have no judgment. And all I can do is, if I personally can't help you, I know enough people now in my Rolodex of therapists and doctors and treatment centers and people who will get you the help. Like anybody can come to me and I will find a way.
Yeah.
Because I get it. I can go to that dark pit of hell with them so fast, so quick, and I can say, let's go. Let's get help. This is not the end of your story.
Yeah. I wish that there were some way where you could say, okay, everybody across the United States or the world on 1, 2, 3, hit this button and this identifies your mental health status.
Ooh.
And then we put out the results anonymously and it shows where we're really at. And I think it would be, I don't think I would be surprised, but I bet the rest of the world would be surprised. Like, holy crap, there are this many people out there that are a lot like me. Like I answered like a 1 out of 10 on my mental health, and wow, people are that low along there with me. I bet it's pretty startling.
We could have that instead of an election.
Yeah, right.
It would make more sense.
And then let's actually make it better. Let's. There's so many different things that I listen to so many podcasts, and I not only listen to podcasts, but I'm starting to interview young girls in these cohorts because I'm doing a big event on September 7th here in Sioux Falls, and I'm all the way to 10 years old to 15 with a guardian, and then 16 and plus can come on their own. But I want to start educating people on this stuff. I feel like if there would have been a seed planted in me other than just my experiences that I was witnessing, like I was witnessing the trauma, I was witnessing the alcoholism, I was seeing the fights and the abuse and all the things around me, but that was my environment. So it just felt like it was my environment. I did notice it differently in other people's families, but I just thought they were lucky.
Yeah.
I didn't know that was possible. And so I can just say that like there's so many people in our all the way down to 6 years, they're struggling because they're in environments that are unhealthy. And if we I just want to, the speakers are all awesome, like just their subject matters, experts, and so that they can press in from a biblical knowledge and truth into these girls and these moms and these grandmas. Because it's like I used to say I just didn't know any better, but the truth is there's so much knowledge and there's so much out there for us to know better. It's just a matter of where you put your time and your attention to understand, to know better, like trauma and the neuro. Just the neurologically, like how we're wired, why we do what we do, why we say like our patterns, our behavior, all the things. There's so much information that we can learn so that we can do better. And I want to bring that information into one place and pour into these girls so they know where their true identity and worth comes from.
So do you have a website set up for this yet?
No.
Or a page?
No.
How can we, so if we put a link in the show notes to this, how can you get more information?
We're going to start promoting it. It's actually going to be launched, or the tickets will go on sale Monday, May 13th. I'm
Okay.
working right now on all the stuff. Right now, it's just more of a save the date for September
Okay.
7th.
Okay.
And
So
it-
we'll follow up and get that
Yeah.
link from you before we post.
We'll be right back.
So before we kind of dial out here,
Ooh, sorry, we're over.
Tell us about Fortitude.
So about 2 years ago, Fortitude birthed as a podcast. I love to tell people stories. I realized the more I told my story, the more healing I got.
Yeah.
And because I listen to people's story, I am able to draw someone's story out of them. And I say, have you ever shared this with anyone? And they're like, no. I was like, would you?
Yeah.
Well, the podcast, we're at 38 episodes. We launched it 2 years ago. It'll be 2 years in October. And it's all over the world. I mean, people are listening to it in the Philippines and in Africa. And so what I love is God just gave me a vision to tell people stories because I love them. And I just believe everyone has a beautiful story. So that's how it all started. And then it's kind of morphed into, because I'm so open and raw about our story, people started asking if I would come share at different events and different conferences. And so Fortitude is the umbrella of my speaking engagements. So I just love to come and share and pour hope into people. And the podcast, I'm starting to do more events. I've moved into rural areas of doing smaller, more intimate events because I believe the rural communities are really
Because the hillbillies need hope too.
Yes, they do. A lot. All the hillbillies, all these farmers, and these families that are just beautiful, rock solid families. There's a little bit of isolation in the rural communities that they need a little bit more hope and full of the Spirit. So, I became a minister through my past employer, who that was a big step for me, and so being able to kind of encompass all of that I kind of look at Fortitude as I'm just out, honestly, just representing hope and God. And from the podcast speaking events, there's more to come with all of that. And we're getting ready to build a website and move more into operational, all this stuff. Because I kind of am just visionary. I just run. God says do it. And I'm like, okay, let's go. Doing different studies. I have a study right now. I'm working with 30 women to just help them understand healthy biblical boundaries. Boundaries are a big piece for me. I believe that's what saved my life.
Yeah.
A portion of it is just understanding that I don't have to give my all to everybody. Only certain people.
Yep.
So earlier you were saying how you felt like you wanted to be more private and you wanted to keep your story to yourself because you were worried about the thoughts and the judgment from other people in the community. So what was that moment or that transition point when you realized, hey, I got to tell my story for other people and build, what became Fortitude?
Thanks for asking that, because it's pretty significant because I had a lot of one-on-one conversations. I would look at that person across the table and I kept praying for God to show me pound on the inside of my chest when I'm supposed to share my story. Because I don't want anyone to take it, warp it, and use it for ammo of not for good. And what happened was the pounding on my heart started pounding from time to time to time, person after person, one-on-one. And I would simply just say, I don't know if this is going to resonate with you, but can I share something with you? And if it does, just know that I'm here for you.
Yeah.
And I would do that. And I stopped counting at 14, you guys. And it was them. I could witness some shaking or just signs that there might have been something. Or then I just had God would just go, tell your story. And so I would just share it. And it was my mom, my dad, my brother, my husband, my son. And it was not just this had happened to them. It was, this is happening. It was in the moment. And so I was able to say, wow, okay, let me step into that if you don't mind. And I'll help you find someone, or if you want me to come and talk to them, I will. So it was more of just, that's when I knew that there was more to my story of being the vessel to help people that have gone through what I've gone through. And even if it's not what I've gone through, the whole hope thing, or just people needing someone, people want to be seen and heard.
Yep.
That's all we got to offer, a smile and anything I can do for you today? And when we do that, it opens up this whole thing that is beautiful. So that's when I knew. I was like, and not a single person, you guys, has looked at me and said, oh, I knew you were such a fraud.
Right.
It is, I am so proud of you for being open, being honest, getting help. We think the world is going to shun us when we open up and we're honest with our vulnerability or the things that we struggle with. And it's the complete opposite.
Yeah.
People rally and they want to be and help. Alcoholism and drug is a little bit different than like a cancer because it's you have a little bit different of a stigma, which I also want to break that.
Yeah.
Because if we're all sick with something, we all need the same support.
Yeah.
I don't care if it's a tater tot hot dish. I don't care what kind of support you're going to give. No matter what kind of disease or pain or hurt we have, we all need to rally around each other.
If they burn it, though, I don't know.
Burn it?
Yeah, if they burn that tater tot dish.
I don't know. Crispy tater tots are
Is
good.
it hot
Scrape
dish or
off top of it.
casserole?
Tater tot hot dish.
We've got some guests who would argue the other way,
Casserole.
but I feel like that'd be a good question.
I kind of go back and forth because I'm a supper lunch girl, not a dinner. Oh. Dinner. What do they? I don't know. I'm a lunch supper,
Not dinner.
not dinner, because people call lunch dinner and dinner.
Yeah.
And then you get confused. What time am I supposed to show up? Do you want me there at noon or do you want me there at 6 if it's dinner? So I try to keep it.
Well, thanks for being an advocate.
Thanks. Oh, not for casserole?
Well, for both tater tot hot dishes and
Yes.
telling stories and
Yes.
Yeah.
being open and vulnerable.
Yeah, stories are the best. And I appreciate that you have that ability to bring out those stories for people because, I mean, we say that all the time. Everybody has a story. And some
do.
people go, oh, I don't have a story like Heather's. There's, nobody's going to listen to that. That's not
Yeah.
true. There's always something amazing about what somebody's accomplished or something they've gone through or something they want to do. They just need to have the courage to say it and throw it out there and then see what happens. Yeah.
Yeah, their story may not have some sort of big T, like we always say, the big T trauma,
Sure.
small trauma. It could be something just as simple as them walking with someone that
Right.
I mean, I look at Amos, and Amos had an incredible childhood. He just like, I really don't have any big moments. And I'm like, well, you're welcome. You're welcome. Yeah. One last thing I'd love to end on, you guys, because I know we got to go, is when you feel a nudge to contact someone or reach out to someone, or someone pops in your head randomly, or you're scrolling through your phone and you see someone's name and it for some reason you're like, ooh, pay attention to that. Because
Yeah.
I think about what Amos, how he paid attention that day. And I do that. I every single morning in my devotion, I always ask God to please, those who need just to hear from you today,
Yeah.
let me be that person for you. And the more and more I say that, people are following back up with, hey, I followed a nudge and you won't believe what happened. And I'm like, it's a real thing.
Yeah.
Like when people are on your heart, it can save a life. So do that.
Well, we've said this before. I hate to repeat things, but we just kind of finalized a video for Volunteer of America's Rise and Shine for this year.
Yeah.
And our favorite interview, probably of all time now, is this young lady who's now an Access 180 Youth Services supervisor. Her name's Tabitha.
Yeah.
And she has a very, very traumatic story. And the epiphany for all of us that were there that day when she was talking, she said, they say that marijuana is the gateway drug, but it's not. It's loneliness.
Loneliness. Yep.
And it's just like, oh my Lord. So, I mean, what you're saying, yeah, people, just a smile, just, hey, do you want to go grab a coffee? Whatever. We need more of that in this world because it just seems it just gets more and more divisive and there's just too much crap going on. We just
Yeah.
need to be human beings to each other.
Yeah. And looking someone in the eye,
Yeah,
you can't look someone in the eye without smiling.
sure.
I mean, Vince, maybe you can. But it's this whole there's a warmth in when you connect with someone, you're connecting eye to eye with their soul.
Yeah.
Like people are not looking at each other anymore. So it's like, look up when you're sitting
Yeah.
in a waiting room, or just look up when you're walking
Yeah.
and
Look up from your
smile.
phone.
Yeah. Smile at someone.
Yeah, true.
It's it just makes such a big difference.
True.
It does.
So any one last story of nostalgia you care to share before we close this episode out?
When I was asked to be a participant in the Miss Slayton pageant.
Oh.
This is a fun one because I was a sports. I didn't know heels. I didn't wear makeup. I didn't want to be a girly girl. And we had someone come teach us how to walk in heels. And it's so hard for me to put on my heels and not think about sticking a quarter in my butt crack. So this is the first thing that came to mind, Jeff, when you said that he was hilarious because he made us all put heels on and he said, now just tighten your butt cheeks and pretend you got a quarter in there and you got to hold it in there. And I was like, this is why I don't want to wear heels. Like so I just remember walking on that stage and yeah, that to me was a moment that because then I ended up being someone who wears heels, not necessarily anymore, but that's for those who are having trouble walking in heels. There's your advice.
What a great way to end it.
What we learned is if you're out of quarters and you need one for the parking meter, don't ask Heather for her quarter because you never know where it came from.
You never know. Yep. But if you do want one, you know that I have one.
Thank you for being such a ray of sunshine.
You're welcome.
And normally we close our show out by asking our guests, what is the advice they have for our viewers. But I think you've dropped plenty of good, just the listen and the, if you're thinking of somebody to reach out to them, like those are wonderful things.
Yeah.
To our viewers, we will leave all of Heather's information, whether that's for her upcoming event, her podcast, soon to be launched website. Hopefully by the time we launch this episode, we'll have it there so you can connect with her and hear more wonderful stories of hope and resilience. Thanks so much for being here.
Thanks, you guys. This has been awesome.
And so listeners, stay engaged, stay, always curious, and we'll see you on Nostalgia Street next time. Make sure to subscribe to our podcast on your favorite podcast platform. If you're on iTunes, please take a moment and leave us a rating and review.
Head on over to our YouTube channel and hit that subscribe button. You'll get access to engaging visuals that complement our podcast content.
Thanks again for tuning in, and we look forward to having you with us on our next episode. So until next time, listeners, stay curious, stay engaged,
And never stop walking down Nostalgia Street.